Accountability versus illusion. The contrasting moral frameworks of ancient Egypt and Mosaic law. Throughout history, civilizations have developed ethical codes to regulate society and uphold a vision of justice. However, the true test of a moral system lies not in its grandeur, but in its capacity to hold individuals accountable, regardless of status, wealth, or political power. This distinction becomes strikingly clear when comparing the moral frameworks of ancient Egyptian society and Mosaic law. While Egyptian moral teachings, rooted in the concept of Mahat, provided a ceremonial structure benefiting the elite, Mosaic law established universal responsibility, ensuring that righteousness was not reserved for rulers but demanded of every person. The difference is profound. One is a system designed to project virtue. The other is a system designed to enforce it. The illusion of moral righteousness in Egypt. Egyptian civilization prided itself on maintaining divine order, encapsulated in the principle of Ma'at. This cosmic balance dictated justice, truth, and harmony in both earthly life and the afterlife. The Negative Confessions, a set of declarations found in the Book of the Dead, outlines moral statements such as, "I have not stolen, I have not told lies, I have not inflicted pain on others." These proclamations sound noble, yet they serve primarily as ritualistic affirmations, recited as part of funerary rites, rather than upheld as an enforceable legal code. Egyptian moral order was deeply intertwined with religious ceremony, a system where adherence was observed before death rather than mandated during life. Moreover, Egyptian society was rigidly hierarchical, with justice often serving the ruling class, while the lower classes remained subject to systemic inequalities. The pharaoh, seen as divine, was positioned above accountability, embodying the very order of Ma'at without ever being judged by its standards. Unlike Mosaic law, which prescribed direct consequences for rulers and citizens alike, Egyptian morality functioned as an aesthetic, beautiful in principle, but hollow in execution. While the wealthy and priestly class spoke of moral ideals, daily Egyptian life, particularly for the common people, was driven by survival, taxation, and submission to a system that benefited the elite far more than it nurtured moral growth among the masses. Grand temples and legal texts spoke of virtue, yet in reality, power remained concentrated in the hands of pharaohs and religious officials, whose ritual purity superseded moral accountability. Even Egypt's most celebrated wisdom texts, like the Instruction of Ptahhotep, presented moral ideals that served administrative stability rather than true justice. Teachings such as "be humble before those greater than you" reinforced the idea that morality was performative, allowing rulers to maintain order while the masses adhered to a self-regulating framework that ultimately kept them in submission. The distinction between moral rhetoric and true ethical enforcement is critical. Egyptian teachings were aspirational, not obligatory. Mosaic law, the demand for universal accountability. In contrast, Mosaic law, as outlined in the Torah, takes a radically different approach. It does not merely declare morality, it enforces it through binding laws that apply to every individual, from rulers to the lowest members of society. Consider the command in Deuteronomy 16:19-20, which rejects partiality in judgment. Do not pervert justice or show favoritism. Follow justice and justice alone, so that you may live and possess the land the Lord your God is giving you. Unlike Egyptian morality, which functioned as a ceremonial ideal, Mosaic law demands obedience in practical, real-world scenarios. Wealth, status, or priestly authority do not exempt anyone from judgment. Even King David, the most celebrated ruler of Israel, was held accountable for his sins, as seen in 2 Samuel 12, when the prophet Nathan condemns him for his wrongdoing. The significance here is clear. No one, not even kings, can evade divine justice. Additionally, laws regarding social responsibility, such as the commandments concerning widows, orphans, and the poor, Exodus 22:21 through 22, demonstrate that righteousness is a lived reality, not merely words recited before death. Everyone, including the most vulnerable members of society, is included in the moral structure, ensuring true justice instead of illusionary virtue. Even in economic matters, Mosaic law breaks away from Egyptian inequality. The Torah mandates the Jubilee year, Leviticus 25, during which debts are forgiven and land is returned to its original owners, ensuring that wealth does not accumulate indefinitely among the elite. This contrasts sharply with Egyptian taxation systems that favored dynastic power, where the lower classes remained perpetually burdened. The prophetic challenge to false righteousness. Unlike Egypt, where moral teachings reinforce social order, the Hebrew prophetic tradition actively confronted injustice, particularly when leaders failed to uphold true righteousness. The prophet Isaiah condemns those who manipulate morality for self-interest. Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees. Isaiah 10:1. Similarly, Jeremiah 7:5-7 emphasizes that righteousness is not merely declared, but must be practiced. If you really change your ways and deal with each other justly, if you do not oppress the foreigner, the orphan, or the widow, then I will let you live in this place. This prophetic tradition directly challenges the Egyptian model, where morality was a ceremonial recitation rather than an ethical duty. In Israel, those who abused power were held accountable, whether they were rulers, priests, or merchants. Unlike Pharaoh, who stood as the untouchable representative of divine order, Israel's kings were subject to rebuke and judgment, reinforcing the Torah's fundamental premise that justice must be universal, never selective. Influence on modern legal thought. Mosaic law has profoundly shaped contemporary legal principles, particularly in areas such as justice, fairness, and moral accountability. Consider the following influences. Equality before the law. Mosaic law insists that justice must be applied equally, regardless of status or wealth. Deuteronomy 16:19-20. This principle laid the foundation for modern legal frameworks, emphasizing equal protection under the law. Judicial accountability. Unlike Egyptian law, which often favored the elite, Mosaic law holds leaders accountable, influencing constitutional checks and balances that prevent absolute power. Social justice and welfare. Laws protecting widows, orphans, and the poor, Exodus 22:21-22, inspired human rights laws and social welfare policies. Personal and collective responsibility. Unlike Egyptian morality, which was often dictated by external rituals, Mosaic law emphasizes inner conviction and community-wide ethical standards, forming the basis for modern legal enforcement based on individual responsibility. Conclusion. Ancient Egypt celebrated the image of moral order, yet its hierarchical structure made true righteousness unattainable for the masses. Mosaic law, in stark contrast, established a universal expectation of holiness, justice, and accountability, principles that did not exist merely as funeral recitations but demanded active participation in daily life. One system crafted morality for display, the other made it an unwavering necessity. The question then remains, Is moral order truly justice if it does not hold all people accountable? The legacy of Mosaic Law answers this definitively. It is not. Without accountability, morality is nothing more than a beautiful illusion, wielded by those in power, but never truly lived by the people.